The gate didn't just lock me out of my ranch. It recorded the exact moment someone decided I no longer had the right to come home. The red light flashed across my windshield at 11:47 p.m. One sharp beep, then another. Access denied. Rain hammered the roof of my truck hard enough to drown out the engine. Behind me, the horse trailer rocked on its suspension. Daisy, my 8-year-old mare, kicked the steel wall again. The sound cracked through the storm like a rifle shot. She was bleeding. I could smell it even through the rain. Wet leather, mud, sweat. That warm metallic edge that turns your stomach before you ever see the wound. I punched the code again. 4, 7, 2, 9. The number I had used for 3 years. The keypad blinked red. Access denied. You've got to be kidding me. Daisy slammed the trailer wall again. Her breathing came fast and rough through the vents. She had caught her hind leg on a broken section of wire fence at a training property 12 miles north of the ranch. The veterinarian had closed the worst of the wound, but he told me to get her home, clean the stall, and keep her from putting too much weight on it. Every minute she stood trapped in that trailer made the swelling worse. Part 1. Paragraph. The paragraph where Ethan identifies the keypad model from the violation notice. Original. Then I noticed the model number printed at the bottom of the notice. Sentinel AX 900. I knew that system. I had installed dozens of them before coming back to run the ranch. Replace with. Then I noticed the installer's work order number printed at the bottom of the notice, along with a reference to the new electronic access system. I recognized the company. I had installed enough access control equipment before returning to the ranch to know that modern keypads did more than open gates. They kept records. Part 5. Paragraph. The paragraph describing the county map. Original. On her screen, a green line ran through the center of Cole Ranch. Secondary community access. The same words Vanessa had printed on her proposal. That's incorrect, I said. The clerk leaned closer to the monitor. It was updated 6 weeks ago. By whom? She clicked twice. Silver Pines Development Services. Replace with. On her screen, a green line ran through the center of Cole Ranch. Secondary community access. The same words Vanessa had printed on her proposal. That's incorrect, I said. The clerk leaned closer to the county GIS map. It was updated 6 weeks ago after an access revision request was submitted. By whom? She clicked twice. Silver Pines Development Services. She lowered her voice. This map is administrative, Mr. Cole. It doesn't override a recorded deed or easement, but deputies and emergency personnel may rely on it until the county corrects the layer. Part 5. Paragraph. The paragraph explaining why Vanessa obtained the temporary restraining order. Original. By noon, Vanessa had already filed for a temporary restraining order. Her petition described me as hostile, unstable, and actively threatening a critical evacuation corridor. She included photographs of me holding the broken boundary marker. Not the snapped post. Not the tire tracks. Just me standing in the road with 6 feet of wood in my hands. The judge approved an emergency order until a full hearing could be scheduled. Replace with. By noon, Vanessa had already filed for a temporary restraining order. Her sworn petition described me as hostile, unstable, and actively threatening what she called Silver Pine's only secondary wildfire evacuation route. She included photographs of me holding the broken boundary marker. Not the snapped post. Not the tire tracks. Just me standing in the road with 6 feet of wood in my hands. Based on her emergency affidavit and the altered county GIS map, the judge temporarily barred me from disabling or blocking the gate until both sides could appear at a full evidentiary hearing. Part 5. Paragraph. The paragraph where Ethan identifies the exact keypad model. Original. I leaned closer and found the model plate beneath the controller. Sentinel AX 900. Below it, in small white letters, Cloud Audit Retention, 365 days. Replace with. I leaned closer and found the model plate beneath the controller. Sentinel AX 900. Below it, in small white letters, Cloud Audit Retention, 365 days. That was the first time I knew exactly what Vanessa had installed. Not just a keypad, a cloud-connected audit system. Part 6. Paragraph. The opening explanation of how the data was preserved. Original. The gate started talking the moment Rachel sent the preservation notice. Not with a voice, with data. At 8:12 the next morning, Sentinel Access Systems froze the account connected to the AX900 and copied its full audit history to a legal archive. Vanessa could still open the gate. She could still issue codes, but she could no longer erase what had already happened. Replace with. The gate started talking after Rachel obtained an emergency preservation order. Not with a voice, with data. The order required Sentinel Access Systems to preserve the AX900 account, create a forensic copy of its audit history, and prevent administrators from deleting or altering existing records. Vanessa could still operate the gate while the case moved forward. What she could no longer do was erase the past. Part 6. Paragraph. The paragraph where Rachel first displays the user directory. Original. By noon, I was sitting beside her desk while rain tapped the window unit. The room smelled like paper, dust, and hot circuitry from an old monitor struggling to load the export. Then the first page appeared. User directory. Replace with. 4 days later, after Rachel secured expedited discovery, I sat beside her desk while rain tapped the old window air conditioner. The room smelled like paper, dust, and hot circuitry from a monitor struggling to load the court-authorized export. Then the first page appeared. User directory. Part 6. Paragraph. The explanation of how Vanessa knew Ethan was approaching with Daisy. Original. 17 minutes. Vanessa had shut off my code 17 minutes before I reached the gate. Not after an argument. Not because of repeated failed entries. Before she could have known I was coming. The air conditioner rattled in the silence. Rachel printed the page. She planned to lock you out. She knew I was hauling Daisy home. How? I thought about the veterinary clinic, the calls I had made, the route back to the ranch. Then I remembered Dean Mercer's security SUV parked near the livestock auction earlier that evening. Silver Pine Security had been watching the road. Replace with. 17 minutes. Vanessa had shut off my code 17 minutes before I reached the gate. Not after an argument. Not because of repeated failed entries. Before I ever entered the code. The air conditioner rattled in the silence. Then I remembered the call. 20 minutes before reaching the ranch, I had called the Silver Pine security number and told Dean Mercer I was bringing an injured horse home. I had asked him to make sure the unfamiliar new gate would open. Rachel printed the page. You warned them you were coming. And they used the warning to lock me out. The timing was no longer suspicious. It was deliberate. Part 6. Paragraph. The paragraph establishing attempted destruction of electronic evidence. Original. They had not just used the road. They had tried to rewrite what it was. Then Rachel opened the system notes. Replace with. They had not just used the road. They had tried to rewrite what it was. Then Rachel opened the administrative security log. 9 minutes after the preservation order reached the HOA, Vanessa's account attempted a bulk deletion of the audit archive. The system rejected the command. It recorded the attempt anyway. Then Rachel opened the internal system notes. Part 7. Paragraph. The explanation of how new access data was monitored. Original. Every entry matched a keypad log. Rachel had arranged for an independent technician to mirror the cloud data in real time. Vanessa could not change a code without creating a second record of the change. Replace with. Every entry matched a keypad log. Under the preservation order, Sentinel generated a read-only audit copy every 24 hours and delivered it through the court-authorized discovery process. Vanessa could still create or change codes, but every administrative action appeared in the next preserved report. Part 8. Paragraph. The opening of the courtroom scene. Original. The courtroom went silent when the gate beeped. Rachel had asked the clerk to dim the lights. On the screen behind her, rain streaked across the camera lens. My truck sat outside the black steel gate. Daisy kicked the trailer wall. The sound echoed through the speakers. Replace with. 9 weeks later, after expedited discovery and 2 failed settlement conferences, the courtroom went silent when the gate beeped. We were back before Judge Caldwell for the final evidentiary hearing on ownership, access rights, damages, and the permanent injunction. Rachel asked the clerk to dim the lights. On the screen behind her, rain streaked across the camera lens. My truck sat outside the black steel gate. Daisy kicked the trailer wall. The sound echoed through the speakers. Part 8. Paragraph. The paragraph where the county map alteration is explained. Original. Then came the county map. Rachel displayed the file history. The original digital map showed the road as private agricultural access. 6 weeks before the gate installation, the label changed. Secondary community access. The edit originated from an account connected to Silver Pines Development Services. Replace with. Then came the county GIS map. Rachel displayed the revision history and the request submitted to the county mapping office. The original layer showed the road as private agricultural access. 6 weeks before the gate installation, Silver Pines Development Services submitted a revision request describing it as a community corridor. A county employee updated the online map without changing the recorded deed or the 1986 easement. The map had never transferred ownership. Vanessa had simply used an administrative label to make the road look public. Part 8. Paragraph. The paragraph stating the judge's ruling. Original. Judge Caldwell issued the ruling from the bench. The restraining order was dissolved. Silver Pines was ordered to remove the Keypad system, restore my gate, repair the road, replace the irrigation line, compensate me for Daisy's injuries, and pay my legal fees. The association's access was limited to the exact language of the 1986 agreement. Emergency vehicles only. He referred the map alteration, evidence manipulation, and property damage to the county prosecutor. Replace with. Judge Caldwell issued his findings from the bench. The temporary restraining order was dissolved and replaced with a permanent injunction prohibiting Silver Pines from using or controlling the ranch road outside the exact terms of the 1986 easement. Fire, ambulance, police, declared evacuation emergencies. Nothing else. He ordered the HOA to remove the Keypad system, restore the gate, repair the road and irrigation line, reimburse the documented veterinary expenses, and pay the attorney's fees authorized under the governing property agreement. He also directed the clerk to forward the false GIS submission, the attempted audit deletion, and the related testimony to the county prosecutor for review. Part 9. Paragraph. The paragraph explaining who owned the removed gate materials. Original. We kept the old crossbar. We replaced the hinges. We reinforced the frame with steel from the black Keypad gate Vanessa had installed. That part felt right. Replace with. We kept the old crossbar. We replaced the hinges. As part of the final judgment, Silver Pines abandoned the removed gate materials to me rather than paying additional disposal costs. Walter cut 2 reinforcement braces from its black steel frame and welded them behind my father's crossbar. That part felt right. Part 9. Paragraph. The paragraph referring to the financial award. Original. The settlement covered the veterinary bills, the road damage, the irrigation system, the destroyed gate, and Rachel's legal fees. Silver Pines also paid penalties for unauthorized commercial use of private property. Replace with. The final judgment covered the veterinary bills, the road damage, the irrigation repairs, the destroyed gate, and Rachel's legal fees. Silver Pines also paid damages for the unauthorized commercial use of private property. Part 9. Paragraph. The paragraph describing Vanessa's criminal charges. Original. A month later, Rachel called to tell me Vanessa had been charged with falsifying a public record and attempting to destroy electronic evidence. Dean agreed to cooperate with investigators. Replace with. A month later, Rachel called to tell me the county prosecutor had charged Vanessa with submitting a false public record and attempting to destroy electronic evidence after receiving the preservation order. Dean Mercer had agreed to cooperate with investigators in exchange for consideration in his own case. My barn was less than 200 yards beyond the gate. My veterinary supplies were inside. My land was inside. And somehow, I was standing in the rain asking permission to enter it. I stepped out of the truck. Cold water flooded the collar of my jacket and ran down my spine. The new gate stretched across the road in front of me, black steel, 12 feet wide, mounted on fresh concrete posts. A blue keypad glowed beside it. The old gate was gone. My father had welded that gate himself from salvaged railroad steel in 1989. I still remembered the sparks falling around his boots while I held the flashlight. He had carved our last name into the crossbar with a cutting torch. Cole. Now there was only a polished metal sign. Silver Pines Community Access. I wiped rain from the keypad and entered my code a third time. Red light. Denied. Then the speaker above the keypad clicked. Static hissed. A woman's voice came through, calm and sweet enough to make my jaw tighten. Mr. Cole, repeated unauthorized attempts are automatically logged. Vanessa Whitmore, HOA president, real estate broker, professional smile, white Lexus, the kind of woman who could threaten you while sounding like she was inviting you to brunch. Open the gate, Vanessa. I'm sorry, but your access credentials have been temporarily suspended. My horse is injured. You'll need to wait for community security to verify your identity. I looked through the steel bars at the road leading to my barn. Rainwater rushed along the tire tracks. The barn light glowed in the distance, yellow and warm, close enough to touch. You replaced my gate. We upgraded an unsafe structure. You removed private property. The board authorized an emergency access improvement. Daisy screamed inside the trailer. That sound stripped away the last bit of patience I had left. Open it now. Vanessa paused. Then her voice hardened. Damaging HOA infrastructure will result in criminal charges. The speaker went silent. For 3 seconds, all I heard was rain and Daisy's hooves scraping steel. Then I grabbed the bolt cutters from behind my seat. I didn't touch the new gate. I walked 20 feet east, found the section of livestock fence beside it, and cut my own wire. The metal snapped in my hands. I dragged the fence open, drove through the mud, and brought Daisy to the barn. By sunrise, the veterinarian had stitched her leg. By 8, a violation notice was taped to my front door. Destruction of community property. Fine, $2,500. I stood there with mud dried on my boots and blood still under my fingernails. Then I noticed the model number printed at the bottom of the notice. Sentinel AX 900. I knew that system. I had installed dozens of them before coming back to run the ranch. Vanessa thought she had installed a lock. What she had actually installed was a witness. Every code, every denial, every remote command, every administrator who opened that gate. All of it was stored. And what she didn't know was that the system had already recorded the person who disabled my access 17 minutes before I arrived. My father used to say a gate tells you everything about the person who built it. Some gates are meant to keep animals in. Some are meant to keep trouble out. And some are built by people who need everyone else to know they are in control. The original gate to Cole Ranch was never pretty. It leaned half an inch to the west and groaned every winter when the hinges tightened in the cold. Dad welded it from old railroad steel he bought at an auction outside Amarillo. The metal was thick, scarred, and nearly impossible to bend. He built it when I was 9. I remember standing beside him after sunset, holding a flashlight while orange sparks bounced across the gravel. The air smelled like hot iron and burned paint. Dad wore the same leather gloves he used for fencing cattle, blackened at the fingertips from years of work. When he finished, he pressed one hand against the crossbar and looked down the road. Locks don't protect land, Ethan, he said. Paper does. At 9 years old, I thought he was talking about money. I understood later. Cole Ranch covered 186 acres of dry pasture, scrub oak, and low hills that turned gold every October. My grandfather bought the first 60 acres in 1948 after coming home from Europe. Dad added the rest slowly, one parcel at a time, working construction during the week and repairing farm equipment on weekends. Nothing came easy. Every fence post had been dug by hand. Every barn roof carried dents from hailstorms. Every legal description in the deed had been checked, filed, and stored in a fireproof cabinet beneath my father's desk. The ranch existed because 3 generations of my family refused to let paperwork become someone else's weapon. Silver pines did not exist back then. For most of my childhood, the land east of us was cedar brush and abandoned grazing fields. Then developers arrived with survey crews, bulldozers, and glossy signs showing smiling families beside swimming pools that had not been built yet. Within 5 years, 200 beige houses appeared behind stone walls. The HOA came next. At first, they were harmless. They sent letters about landscaping. They planted decorative trees near the highway. They mailed Dad invitations to neighborhood barbecues he never attended. Then the traffic started. Silver Pines had one main entrance on County Road 16. During morning rush hour, cars backed up for almost a mile. Residents discovered that our narrow ranch road connected to an older service road on the north side. It saved them 12 minutes. Dad stopped the first driver himself. He stood in the middle of the gravel road with both hands on his hips while a man in a red sports car shouted through an open window. "This road belongs to the community." Dad pointed toward the gate. That gate says Cole. The driver reversed. The next morning, Dad hired a surveyor. That survey became the most important document in the house. It showed the ranch road entirely inside our boundary. The only recorded access agreement had been signed in 1986, when a wildfire nearly trapped several families east of us. The language was narrow. Fire vehicles, ambulances, police, declared evacuation emergencies. Nothing else. No residents. No contractors. No HOA board. Dad kept a copy inside the kitchen drawer beside the phone. When he died, I found it under a stack of feed receipts, folded into a clear plastic sleeve. His fingerprints were still visible in the dust along the edges. I had spent 16 years installing access control systems in warehouses, hospitals, and government buildings. Keypads, badge readers, remote locks, camera integration. I knew how people use technology to protect property. I also knew how they used it to control people. I came back to run the ranch because I was tired of fluorescent lights and windowless equipment rooms. I wanted open sky, honest work, and the quiet rhythm of feeding horses before sunrise. For almost 3 years, that was exactly what I had. Then Vanessa Whitmore decided my gate was standing between her community and higher property values. She saw a private road. I saw my father's welding marks. She saw 12 minutes saved. I saw a legal boundary. And when she replaced that old steel gate with a keypad, she did more than remove part of my family's history. She created a digital record of every person who crossed it. Vanessa Whitmore first came to my ranch wearing white shoes. That should have told me everything. Nobody who understood cattle, gravel, or common sense wore white leather onto a working property after rain. But there she was, stepping out of a pearl-colored Lexus with a clipboard tucked against her chest, and a smile polished smooth enough to hide a blade. The tires stopped 3 feet short of the old gate. She looked at the rusted railroad steel like it had personally offended her. "Mr. Cole," she called, stretching my name into something formal and unnecessary. "Do you have a moment to discuss community access?" I was replacing a hinge on the south paddock fence. Grease covered both hands. The smell of wet soil and machine oil hung in the morning air. I already knew what she wanted. Silver Pines had just approved another phase of development. 48 new homes on the North Ridge. More cars. More deliveries. More pressure on the single entrance connecting the subdivision to County Road 16. My ranch road sat between their traffic problem and an easy solution. I wiped my hands on a shop rag and walked toward her. "This isn't community access." Her smile held. "The board views it as an underused emergency corridor. Emergency only." "Exactly." She opened her clipboard and showed me a color map. My road had been highlighted in bright green from the east boundary to the northern service lane. At the top, someone had typed, "Proposed secondary resident access." I tapped the words with one greasy finger. "That doesn't say emergency." Vanessa glanced down as if she had never noticed the heading. "It's preliminary language. It's my road. We're not disputing ownership." She said it too quickly. Behind her, the Lexus engine ticked as it cooled. Somewhere in the pasture, a horse snorted. Wind pushed the sharp scent of cedar through the fence. Vanessa turned the page. "We're proposing a controlled gate system. Keypad access. Security cameras. Professional installation. The HOA would cover all costs." No, her eyebrows lifted. "You haven't heard the details." "I heard enough." She took a slow breath through her nose. The smile remained, but the warmth left it. "The current structure is outdated and creates a potential liability. That structure has worked for 35 years. It isn't consistent with Silver Pines standards. This ranch isn't part of Silver Pines." That was the sentence she hated. I saw it in the way her fingers tightened around the clipboard. Not enough to crease the paper. Just enough to turn her knuckles pale. Vanessa had spent 6 years as HOA president. She controlled landscaping contracts, security patrols, architectural approvals, and every monthly meeting held in the clubhouse. People lowered their voices when she entered a room. But out there, beyond the stone sign and trimmed hedges, her title meant nothing. She looked through the gate toward my road. "With electronic access, we could prevent unauthorized traffic." "I already prevent unauthorized traffic. You use a chain. I use ownership." The wind lifted one corner of her map. She pressed it flat. "Emergency vehicles need reliable access. They have it. The fire department has a key in a lockbox. What about residents during evacuation? The county declares an emergency, The gate opens. That system depends on you being available. No, it depends on the agreement your board signed. For the first time, Vanessa dropped the friendly tone. Community safety outranks personal preference, Mr. Cole. There it was. The real woman underneath the perfume and careful smile. I stepped closer to the gate. This isn't preference. It's private property. For a moment, neither of us spoke. A drop of water slid from the bottom rail and struck the gravel between us. Vanessa closed the clipboard. The board will review its options. Then she turned and walked back to the Lexus, placing each white shoe carefully between the mud. Before getting inside, she looked over the roof at me. You may find cooperation more beneficial than resistance. I smiled. You may find the deed more important than the map. Her door shut with a soft, expensive thump. 2 days later, I received a certified letter accusing my gate of obstructing public safety. 5 days after that, a survey crew appeared near my eastern fence. And 1 week later, Vanessa sent me a photograph of a black steel keypad gate with a single sentence beneath it. Installation approved. I replied in writing. You do not have permission. She never answered. That silence should have worried me more than any threat she could have made. Because Vanessa wasn't trying to convince me anymore. She was preparing to act like my answer didn't matter. I smelled the cut steel before I saw the gate. Burned metal has a bitter edge to it. Hot, dry, almost electrical. It drifted through the open window of my truck as I turned onto the ranch road late Thursday afternoon. Then I heard the hydraulic motor. A low mechanical hum. I rounded the cedar bend and hit the brakes. My father's gate was lying in the ditch. The old railroad steel frame had been sliced through both hinges with a torch. One end rested in the mud. The crossbar with coal burned into it was twisted against a pile of fence wire like scrap waiting for collection. In its place stood 12 feet of black powder-coated steel. Fresh concrete surrounded 2 square posts. A keypad glowed blue beside the road. Above it, a camera slowly turned toward my truck. 3 workers in orange vests were packing tools into a white utility van. Vanessa stood beside them. Of course she did. Cream jacket, dark sunglasses, white Lexus parked on my grass. She held out a small card as I stepped from the truck. Your temporary access code. I looked at the numbers. 4, 7, 2, 9. The same code she would later disable while I was hauling an injured horse home through a storm. What did you do? Her smile appeared instantly. We completed the safety upgrade. You cut down my gate. The existing structure was documented as unsafe. By whom? Our contractor. One of the workers stopped loading a drill and stared at the ground. I walked past Vanessa and crouched beside the old hinge. The steel was still warm. Black slag clung to the cut like frozen tar. Dad's welding bead ran along the plate, uneven but solid after 35 years. Vanessa's perfume mixed with acetylene fumes and wet dirt. It made me sick. I denied permission in writing. The board voted unanimously. The board doesn't own this road. She tapped the card against her clipboard. The recorded access corridor allows the association to maintain safe passage. No, it allows emergency vehicles to cross during declared emergencies. We've received different legal guidance. I stood. From your husband's real estate attorney? Her smile tightened. Before she could answer, the gate motor whined. A silver SUV rolled up from the Silver Pines side. The driver punched in a code. The keypad chirped once, and the gate slid open. The SUV passed between us without slowing. Dust rolled across my boots. Then came another car. And another. 3 residents had used my ranch as a shortcut before the installation crew had even left. Vanessa lifted one hand toward the traffic as if unveiling a monument. This will reduce congestion and improve evacuation readiness. A pickup towing landscaping equipment entered behind them. Its trailer clipped a wooden boundary marker and snapped it in half. The driver never stopped. I felt my jaw lock. You gave contractors access? Approved vendors. To my ranch. To the corridor. There was that word again. Not road. Not property. Corridor. A clean bureaucratic word designed to make theft sound like planning. I moved toward the keypad and studied the housing. Sentinel branding. Weather-sealed panel. Cloud-connected controller. Camera integration. Vanessa mistook my attention for surrender. Modern systems are much more reliable than chains and padlocks, she said. Every resident will receive a unique code. Every resident. More than 200 households. I turned toward her. Remove it. That won't be happening. then stop issuing codes. The system is already active. As if summoned by the words, another vehicle came through. A teenager in a lifted truck accelerated on the gravel, throwing stones against the fence. The horses in the nearest pasture scattered. One mare kicked the lower rail. The wood cracked. I ran toward the paddock, waving the truck down, but the driver disappeared around the hill. Behind me, Vanessa called out, "Speed control signage is scheduled for next month." I reached the fence and checked the horses. No blood, no broken legs, just wide eyes, flared nostrils, and bodies trembling beneath wet coats. When I returned, Vanessa was standing beside her Lexus. "You're welcome," she said. I looked at my father's gate in the ditch, at the fresh tire tracks cutting across our land, at the blue keypad blinking patiently beside the road. Then I looked at the camera above it. The lens turned and centered on me. Vanessa thought she had replaced an old piece of steel. What she had really done was install a machine that would document every trespass, every contractor, every resident, and every lie she told about why they were there. I picked up the broken boundary marker and held it where she could see it. "Keep issuing codes," I said. Her smile returned. She thought I was giving up. I was counting on her believing exactly that. Vanessa beat me on paper before I ever saw the inside of a courtroom. That was the part nobody warns you about. People think property disputes begin with shouting, fences, or deputies standing in the road. Most of them begin under fluorescent lights with a clerk sliding the wrong map across a counter. I went to the county records office the morning after Vanessa installed the gate. The building smelled like old carpet, printer toner, and coffee that had been burning since sunrise. I carried my deed, the 1986 access agreement, 3 surveys, and photographs of my father's gate lying in the ditch. The clerk typed my parcel number. Then she frowned. On her screen, a green line ran through the center of Cole Ranch. Secondary community access. The same words Vanessa had printed on her proposal. "That's incorrect," I said. The clerk leaned closer to the monitor. "It was updated 6 weeks ago." "By whom?" She clicked twice. "Silver Pines Development Services." My stomach went cold. Vanessa had not just replaced the gate. Someone had changed the county's digital map. I placed the original survey on the counter. The paper crackled beneath my hand. "This road is private." The clerk lowered her voice. "I'm not saying the map is legally controlling, but until it's reviewed, enforcement will rely on the current record." That sentence followed me all the way to the sheriff's office. Deputy Halvorsen met me in the lobby. Good man. Tired eyes. 20 years of listening to neighbors accuse each other over trees, dogs, and drainage ditches. He studied my documents. Then he studied the printed county map. "This looks civil," he said. "They cut down my gate. The association claims maintenance rights. They gave 200 people codes to my property. You'll need a judge to settle access. What am I supposed to do until then?" He closed the folder carefully. "Don't damage the new gate." By noon, Vanessa had already filed for a temporary restraining order. Her petition described me as hostile, unstable, and actively threatening a critical evacuation corridor. She included photographs of me holding the broken boundary marker. Not the snapped post. Not the tire tracks. Just me standing in the road with 6 feet of wood in my hands. The judge approved an emergency order until a full hearing could be scheduled. I was forbidden from blocking, disabling, or interfering with the keypad gate. On my own land. Rachel Bennett was the third attorney I called. The first wanted a $15,000 retainer before reading the deed. The second told me fighting an HOA could cost $70,000 and 2 years of my life. Rachel listened without interrupting. Then she said, "Bring me everything." Her office sat above a hardware store in town. No marble lobby. No framed golf photographs. Just stacked case files, a humming window unit, and shelves full of property law books with cracked spines. She read the access agreement twice. "This language favors you," she said. "Then why am I locked under a restraining order?" "Because they filed first, used the county map, and called it an emergency." "So the truth doesn't matter?" "It matters after we prove it." Outside, traffic hissed across wet pavement. Rachel tapped one line in Vanessa's petition. "They're claiming continuous community use. They installed the gate yesterday. They'll argue residents used the road before that. A few trespassers did. They only need confusion long enough to create leverage." That evening, Vanessa held an emergency HOA meeting. I watched the recording later. She stood beneath the Silver Pines logo, and called me a dangerous landowner obstructing public safety. Residents nodded. One man suggested the county condemn part of my ranch. A woman I had never met said I cared more about cattle than children. The comments spread online before dinner. Selfish rancher blocks evacuation route. Private landowner threatens community safety. By sunset, drivers were leaning on their horns when they passed my barn. Someone threw a soda can at the fence. I stood beside the keypad after dark while the blue screen glowed against the gravel. A car approached from Silver Pines. For numbers. One green flash. The relay clicked inside the metal housing. Clean. Mechanical. Precise. The gate opened. Then another vehicle came through. Another code. Another timestamp. I leaned closer and found the model plate beneath the controller. Sentinel Axe, 900. Below it, in small white letters, Cloud Audit Retention, 365 days. Vanessa had the map. She had the restraining order. She had the residents convinced I was the enemy. But every time that gate opened, the system recorded who used it, when they used it, and which administrator gave them permission. The county map could be changed. People could lie. Timestamps could not. The gate started talking the moment Rachel sent the preservation notice. Not with a voice, with data. At 8:12 the next morning, Sentinel Access Systems froze the account connected to the AX 900 and copied its full audit history to a legal archive. Vanessa could still open the gate. She could still issue codes. But she could no longer erase what had already happened. Rachel called me from her office. "Do not touch the controller," she said. "Do not change a code. Do not warn them. You found something?" I found enough to make them nervous. By noon, I was sitting beside her desk while rain tapped the window unit. The room smelled like paper, dust, and hot circuitry from an old monitor struggling to load the export. Then the first page appeared. User directory. Vanessa had created 47 active codes. Not emergency credentials. Not fire department access. Personal codes. Board. Vendor master. Realtor. Family. Landscaping. Pool service. Weekend tour. At the bottom was mine. Ethan Cole. Suspended. Rachel looked at me. "When was your horse injured?" "Tuesday night. 11:47. She opened the administrator log. A line of text appeared. 11:30 p.m. User Ethan Cole disabled. Administrator, Whitmore. 17 minutes. Vanessa had shut off my code 17 minutes before I reached the gate. Not after an argument. Not because of repeated failed entries. Before she could have known I was coming. The air conditioner rattled in the silence. Rachel printed the page. She planned to lock you out. She knew I was hauling Daisy home. How? I thought about the veterinary clinic, the calls I had made, the route back to the ranch. Then I remembered Dean Mercer's security SUV parked near the livestock auction earlier that evening. Silver Pine security had been watching the road. Rachel opened the remote access records. 11:49 p.m. Live camera view initiated. Administrator, Whitmore. 11:50 p.m. Audio connection opened. 11:53 p.m. Remote open request canceled. She could have opened the gate from her phone. She watched Daisy kicking inside the trailer. She heard me tell her the horse was bleeding. Then she deliberately canceled the command. My mouth tasted like metal. Rachel slid the printed log toward me. "This changes the case." But that was only the beginning. We compared the access history with my camera footage and the photographs I had taken from the past 6 weeks. Every code told a different story. Vendor master opened the gate 143 times. Landscaping trucks. Pool chemicals. Construction trailers. Food delivery vans. None of them were emergency vehicles. The realtor code was used 36 times, mostly on Saturdays between 10 and 4. My trail cameras showed Vanessa's Lexus leading groups of luxury SUVs through the ranch. She had been using my land for property tours. The weekend tour code opened the gate during 3 Silver Pines open house events. The family code belonged to Vanessa's daughter. She used it after midnight. Twice. Rachel found a second administrator account under Dean Mercer's name. He had created temporary credentials for contractors, deleted failed access alerts, and changed the gate description in the system from Cole Ranch East Entry to Silver Pines Secondary Gate. They had not just used the road. They had tried to rewrite what it was. Then Rachel opened the system notes. Vanessa had left comments besides several access changes. Owner non-compliant. Remove private control. Prepare for permanent community use. She wrote it all down because she believed the account belonged to her. That arrogance was the gift. People lie differently when they think nobody is listening. The keypad had listened to everything. Every code she created. Every time she opened the gate for a buyer. Every attempt to hide a failed entry. Every second she watched me standing in the rain with an injured horse and chose not to let me onto my own land. Rachel closed the laptop. We have to let her keep using it. I looked at the stack of printed logs. You want me to do nothing? I want you to look defeated. Outside, thunder rolled over the rooftops. I understood. Vanessa controlled the gate, but the gate controlled the record. And every time she pressed 4 numbers into that keypad, she was adding another page to my case. I stopped fighting the gate in public. That was the hardest part. For 3 weeks, I let Vanessa believe she had won. I stopped attending HOA meetings. I stopped arguing with drivers. I stopped standing beside the road with my deed in one hand and anger in the other. When residents waved from behind their windshields, I looked away. When contractors crossed my land, I wrote down the time. When the keypad chirped, I listened. 1 beep. 1 opening. 1 more line in the record. Vanessa mistook silence for surrender. People like her usually do. The first sign came on a Monday morning when a new banner appeared at the Silver Pines entrance. Luxury country living, open house weekend. Beneath it was a smaller line. Private ranch access available. I stood beside my mailbox reading those words while diesel engines growled in the distance. Rachel had warned me not to react. Let them explain it themselves, she said. So I did. By Friday, Vanessa had created 12 temporary access codes. The audit log named them Tour 1 through Tour 12. Each code had an expiration time, a user group, and administrator approval under Whitmore. She was organizing the trespass. Saturday morning arrived bright and dry. At 9:42, the first black SUV entered. At 9:47, 2 more followed. By 10, the ranch road looked like a dealership test track. Luxury vehicles rolled past the horse pasture in a slow parade. Buyers lowered their windows to smell the cedar and clean air Vanessa was selling them. A real estate agent in a blue blazer pointed toward my barn as if it belonged in the brochure. Authentic working ranch views, I heard him say. The words drifted across the fence. Authentic. That almost made me laugh. I sat inside my truck near the equipment shed with a thermos of coffee, a camera, and a legal pad. Time. Plate number. Vehicle description. Direction of travel. Every entry matched a keypad log. Rachel had arranged for an independent technician to mirror the cloud data in real time. Vanessa could not change a code without creating a second record of the change. At 11:18, she arrived in her Lexus. White dress, dark glasses, clipboard. She stepped into the road and directed traffic like she owned the horizon. That was when she saw me. For half a second, her smile disappeared. Then she walked over. I'm glad you've decided to cooperate. I took a sip of coffee. Beautiful day for it. Her eyes moved toward the camera on my dashboard. Are you recording residents? I'm recording my property. You're subject to the restraining order. It says I can't interfere with the gate. Her jaw tightened. I smiled. Gate's working fine. She turned away. At 12:06, a concrete delivery truck entered using Vendor Master. It was too heavy for the ranch road. I knew that before the rear axle reached the north bend. The ground trembled under my boots. Gravel popped beneath the tires. Then came a dull crack from below the surface. The truck stopped. Water pushed through the road in a dark, bubbling line. My irrigation main. The pipe fed 2 pastures and the lower barn. Within minutes, muddy water flooded the ditch. Vanessa appeared beside the driver, already speaking into her phone. This is clearly a ranch maintenance failure, she said. I walked toward the broken line. The smell of wet clay rose from the ground. Water hissed through fractured PVC beneath the tires. The driver held up his work order. Silver Pines pool expansion. Rachel arrived 20 minutes later. She photographed the truck, the damage, and the keypad. Then she asked the driver one question. What code did you use? He checked a text message on his phone. Vendor Master. The audit log showed the rest. 12:03 p.m. Vendor Master. Access granted. 12:02 p.m. Remote camera view. Administrator, Whitmore. She had watched the truck approach. She knew its size. She opened the gate anyway. Vanessa crossed her arms. The association will investigate responsibility. Rachel looked at her. No need. For the first time that day, Vanessa's confidence slipped. Only slightly. But I saw it. She finally understood that the gate was not just opening for vehicles. It was connecting every decision to the person who made it. By sunset, 34 cars, 6 contractors, 2 real estate agents, and 1 overloaded concrete truck had crossed my property. The ranch road was scarred. The irrigation line was destroyed. And Vanessa had personally authorized every one of them. She thought the open house had increased the value of Silver Pines. What it really increased was the value of my evidence. The courtroom went silent when the gate beeped. Rachel had asked the clerk to dim the lights. On the screen behind her, rain streaked across the camera lens. My truck sat outside the black steel gate. Daisy kicked the trailer wall. The sound echoed through the speakers. Then the keypad flashed red. Access denied. Vanessa sat at the defense table in a navy suit, hands folded neatly in front of her. She had spent the morning telling Judge Caldwell that Silver Pines had used the road only for emergencies and community safety. Rachel let the video continue. My voice came through the speaker. My horse is injured. Then Vanessa's voice. You'll need to wait for community security to verify your identity. The judge looked over his glasses. Rachel paused the recording. Mrs. Whitmore, did you have the ability to open the gate remotely that night? Vanessa glanced at her attorney. I don't recall. Rachel clicked once. A system log appeared beside the frozen video. 11:49 p.m. Live camera view initiated. User, Whitmore. 11:50 p.m. Audio connection opened. User, Whitmore. 11:53 p.m. Remote open request canceled. User, Whitmore. The room felt smaller. Judge Caldwell leaned forward. You canceled the opening command? Vanessa shifted in her chair. The system may have generated that automatically. Rachel turned toward the witness stand. Mr. Lane? The Sentinel technician adjusted his tie. No, Your Honor. That action requires an administrator to press cancel. Rachel displayed the next line. 11:30 p.m. Ethan Cole access disabled. Administrator, Whitmore. 17 minutes before I arrived. Vanessa's attorney stood. Objection. This is being presented without context. Judge Caldwell never looked away from the screen. Then provide the context. Nobody did. Rachel moved to the access logs. She did not explain them. She let them speak. Vendor master, 143 entries. Realtor, 36 entries. Weekend tour, 52 entries. Emergency, 0 entries. Each line appeared beside matching footage. Landscaping trucks. Pool service vans. Food deliveries. Residents cutting through the ranch during morning traffic. Vanessa's Lexus leading buyers past my barn. The courtroom heard every keypad chirp. One beep. One vehicle. One light collapsing. Rachel played the open house recording. A real estate agent pointed toward my pasture. Private ranch access increases the value of these homes. Vanessa's voice followed. We worked very hard to secure this corridor. Her attorney closed his eyes. Rachel placed the original 1986 agreement on the evidence screen. The paper was yellowed at the edges. My father's signature sat at the bottom. Fire. Ambulance. Police. Declared evacuation emergencies. Nothing about residents. Nothing about contractors. Nothing about real estate tours. Then came the county map. Rachel displayed the file history. The original digital map showed the road as private agricultural access. 6 weeks before the gate installation, the label changed. Secondary community access. The edit originated from an account connected to Silver Pines Development Services. Vanessa's husband sat in the back row. His face drained of color. Judge Caldwell turned to her. Did you authorize this change? No. Rachel opened an email. Subject, Access Map Revision. From Vanessa Whitmore. Update the corridor before filing. We need the county record to support continuous community use. Vanessa stopped blinking. The air conditioner hummed above us. Paper shifted somewhere in the gallery. That was the only sound. Rachel saved the concrete truck for last. The screen showed it approaching the gate. 12:02 p.m. Live camera view. 12:03 p.m. Vendor master access granted. Seconds later, the truck rolled over my irrigation line. The courtroom speakers carried the crack of PVC under 40,000 pounds of steel. Mud and water burst through the road. Vanessa had blamed ranch maintenance. The keypad showed she watched the truck arrive and opened the gate herself. Judge Caldwell removed his glasses. Mrs. Whitmore, Why did you disable the landowner's access, alter the recorded purpose of the road, and authorize commercial traffic across property your association did not own? Vanessa opened her mouth. Nothing came out. For months, she had hidden behind words like safety, improvement, and community. Now every word had a timestamp beside it. Judge Caldwell issued the ruling from the bench. The restraining order was dissolved. Silver Pines was ordered to remove the keypad system, restore my gate, repair the road, replace the irrigation line, compensate me for Daisy's injuries, and pay my legal fees. The association's access was limited to the exact language of the 1986 agreement. Emergency vehicles only. He referred the map alteration, evidence manipulation, and property damage to the county prosecutor. Vanessa's attorney whispered something to her. She stared straight ahead. Rachel closed the evidence file. The projector went dark. But one final image remained in my mind. That red light in the rain. Vanessa had installed the keypad because she believed controlling the gate meant controlling the truth. She learned in court that the map could lie. The board could lie. She could lie. But the gate had recorded everything. The first thing they removed was the sign. Silver Pines Community Access came down on a gray Monday morning, 6 days after the ruling. 2 workers unbolted it from the steel post while a county deputy stood nearby with the court order folded beneath his arm. The keypad came next. Its blue screen was dark now. No friendly glow. No red denial. Just a black plastic face with rain marks dried across it. Vanessa did not come to watch. Neither did Dean Mercer. By then, the HOA board had already voted to remove her as president. 3 members resigned before the meeting ended. Dean's security contract was terminated the same afternoon the county prosecutor requested the full access archive. People who had defended Vanessa suddenly claimed they had never understood what she was doing. That was fine. The gate remembered. A technician disconnected the controller and placed it inside a padded evidence case. The metal latch snapped shut with a clean click. I watched from the edge of the road. That little black box had locked me outside my own ranch. It had watched Daisy bleeding in the trailer. It had opened for contractors, real estate agents, and drivers who believed a 4-digit code gave them ownership. Now it belonged to the court. The HOA paid to repair the irrigation line first. Fresh PVC went into the ground where the concrete truck had crushed the old pipe. Gravel crews rebuilt the damaged road. New fencing replaced the rails broken by speeding vehicles. Daisy healed slowly. The scar on her hind leg stayed visible, a pale line beneath her coat. The first time I let her pass the gate after court, she stopped and pulled against the rope. I could feel the tension through the leather lead. "It's all right," I told her. The road was quiet. No engines. No keypad. No Vanessa watching through a camera. Daisy lowered her head, breathed against my shoulder, and walked through. That mattered more than the money. The settlement covered the veterinary bills, the road damage, the irrigation system, the destroyed gate, and Rachel's legal fees. Silver Pines also paid penalties for unauthorized commercial use of private property. But the most important part of Judge Caldwell's order was one sentence. No association access except fire, ambulance, police, or declared evacuation emergency. Dad's language. Exactly as he had written it. I found his original gate behind the maintenance shed where Vanessa's contractor had dumped it. The frame was bent. Both hinges had been cut away. Rust and torch scars covered the lower rail. Most people would have called it scrap. I called Walter Briggs. Walter had welded pipelines for 30 years before retiring. He arrived with an old red machine in the back of his pickup, looked at the damage, and rubbed one hand across the letters Dad had burned into the crossbar. "Cole, steel remembers where it belongs," he said. We spent 2 days straightening the frame. The welding arc flashed white against the barn wall. Sparks rolled across the concrete. The smell of hot iron filled the air, exactly the way it had when I was 9 years old holding a flashlight for my father. We kept the old crossbar. We replaced the hinges. We reinforced the frame with steel from the black keypad gate Vanessa had installed. That part felt right. The thing she used to erase my boundary became part of the gate that restored it. When we raised it back into position, the metal groaned once, then settled onto the hinges. I ran my hand over Dad's welding marks. Not perfect. Not polished. Still standing. Beside the gate, I installed a new sign. Private ranch. Emergency access by recorded court order only. The fire department received a key in a sealed lockbox. The sheriff's office received another. Nobody else got one. No resident code. No vendor master. No realtor access. Just law, steel, and a boundary everyone could understand. A month later, Rachel called to tell me Vanessa had been charged with falsifying a public record and attempting to destroy electronic evidence. Dean agreed to cooperate with investigators. I thanked her and hung up. Then I walked outside. The evening sun stretched across the pasture. Daisy grazed near the repaired fence. Wind moved through the cedar trees, carrying the dry smell of grass and dust. The ranch was quiet again. I stood beside the gate and remembered what Dad had told me. Locks don't protect land. Paper does. He was right. But sometimes, the lock keeps the record that proves the paper was yours. Vanessa installed that keypad because she wanted control. In the end, every entry became court evidence. Every beep became a witness. And every time that gate opened, justice moved one step closer.